I've recently come to the realization that as we grow older, our circle of close friends tends to shrink. Life's obligations often consume us, causing us to overlook the individuals who've profoundly influenced our journey. This stark truth struck me when one of my dearest friends, with whom I'd lost touch, messaged our group chat with the heartbreaking revelation of his terminal illness. The impact of those few text messages hit me like an explosion in a confined space. Amidst the flood of "I love yous" and "we must meet soon" pouring into the chat, I found myself simply sitting there, repeatedly reading the message. My mind wandered through the shared memories, realizing how in an instant, all the memories we could have created together were snatched away. It was a sobering realization of the moments I had prioritized everything else over the cherished people in my life. Consequently, not only did I arrange to visit my friend to offer him all the support and affection I could, but I also took a fortnight off to embark on a road trip, rekindling connections with many individuals slipping from my grasp. I urge everyone to do the same. Reach out to those you've held dear for years. You never know when the last encounter may truly be the last. If possible, nurture those significant bonds. The journey turned out to be incredibly fulfilling. Not only did I explore parts of the country I had yet to see, but revitalizing those old connections left me feeling whole again. As I made my way back, there was only one person left to visit, perhaps the one with whom I shared the strongest bond. Let's call him Jacob. Jacob and I had been inseparable since our elementary school days, until I left for college. When I informed him about my trip and expressed my eagerness to visit his home, the sentiment was clearly mutual. Recently, he had returned to our childhood abode after losing his apartment, and despite its childishness, I was thrilled to revisit the rooms where we once played as kids. Upon reaching his place, I spotted him outside, indulging in something with a familiar scent. I greeted him with an exuberant, "Hey, brotherman." His warm smile mirrored mine as we embraced. We delved into conversation, traversing topics from the mundane to the political and bizarre, in a manner only childhood friends can truly comprehend. As we finally stepped inside, a notably older rendition of his family welcomed me with a delicious homemade feast. The warmth exuding from them hadn't dulled in the slightest over the years. Nostalgia, that elusive feeling, flickered to life within me like a vibrant Christmas tree as we gathered around the table, reminiscing about the bygone years. Every detail was just as vivid as I had remembered. In a somewhat intimate moment, Jacob's mother remarked on the impeccable timing of my visit. When I inquired further, she confided that Jacob had been grappling with challenges since losing his apartment and enduring a breakup with his longtime partner. While I felt it wasn't entirely suitable dinner conversation, Jacob seemed to concur, offering a gentle nod as I awkwardly reassured him. "I'm here for you, buddy." Partly out of necessity and partly to diffuse the tension, I excused myself to use the restroom, conveniently located past Jacob's former abode. It was then that I stumbled upon the first stark difference. A cursory glance at Jacob's uncharacteristically tidy quarters unveiled a sizable white enclosure dominating a table beside his bed. My initial reaction was one of bewilderment. Here was my friend, known for his unapologetic disarray, yet his room was immaculate, devoid of even a speck of dust. Strangely juxtaposed against his aversion to rodents, a plump brown rat occupied center stage in front of a meticulously crafted miniature house that almost grazed the cage's summit. This rodent, standing upright on unsettlingly humanoid legs with arms dangling nonchalantly, fixed its dark gaze directly upon me. Though its body remained motionless, the subtle turn of its head, accompanied by those penetrating eyes, communicated a sense of scrutiny. What truly unsettled me, however, wasn't its piercing gaze, but the faint buzzing or ringing in my ears that intensified the longer our eye contact persisted. It filled me with an inexplicable melancholy, dissipating only when I averted my gaze entirely. With a quick closing of my eyes, I hastily made my exit from the room, only daring to glance back when I heard the faint slam of what seemed like a miniature door, discovering an empty cage in place of the rat, that had been there moments before. Upon my return to the dining table, Jacob immediately remarked on my prolonged absence and the telltale droplets of sweat forming on my forehead. Perplexed, I met Jacob's gaze head-on, questioning when he had undergone this transformation into a meticulous individual, conquered his fear of rodents, acquired a pet rat, and then proceeded to train said rat to stand on its hind legs and stare at unsuspecting visitors. His reply, I struggled to articulate it. He simply chuckled, or perhaps he found amusement in the situation. I couldn't discern. The crux of his response was, indeed, Mr. Katz is quite the character, wouldn't you agree? Pardon me. I half expected him not to have heard me or to believe I was jesting, so I recounted my encounter, to which he shook his head, affirming he comprehended my account entirely. Bizarre as it was, I opted to let it slide. At the time, I couldn't fathom an explanation, but truth be told, I'm no rat expert. Could it be a commonplace behavior for them? Maybe Jacob had developed a penchant for mischief, and training his pet to stand and stare was his idea of entertainment. Despite the unnerving presence of the rat, it remained just that, a rat. Following our dinner, Jacob and I ventured outdoors for a brief hike, procured some snacks, and revisited familiar haunts from our past. In the course of our excursion, a warm wave of nostalgia and contentment washed over me once more, so much so that the unsettling memory of the peculiar pet rat had nearly slipped my mind. During our town-wide perambulations, I noticed Jacob occasionally pausing to take in his surroundings. One of Jacob's endearing qualities has always been his knack for savoring the present moment and contextualizing it in a positive light. Regardless of the circumstance, he excelled at putting things into perspective and keeping us grounded. However, this time, he appeared uncertain. It was as though revisiting his past stirred apprehensions about the future. After pursuing higher education, pursuing a romantic interest, and securing a new job and living space, things seemed promising. Until they weren't, and he found himself right back where he started. A sense of frustration was palpable as he regarded his best friend, seeing all his cherished memories as mere remnants of a bygone era. For Jacob, it was the monotonous rhythm of daily existence. Same old, same old, same old. When it dawned on me that Jacob wasn't deriving the same joy from our outing as I was, I suggested we return to his home and unwind for a while before I took my leave. Upon our return, events took a curious twist. The lineup of vehicles in front of the garage remained unchanged, indicating that nobody had ventured out earlier. Curiously, Jacob's parents and siblings had alluded to our rendezvous later in the evening. However, the abode stood eerily vacant and soundless. Puzzled, I inquired about the whereabouts of Jacob's family, scouring every room, the bathroom, and the backyard to no avail. Jacob merely chuckled, dismissing my concerns with a cryptic remark about their purported pursuit of self-improvement elsewhere. Accepting this as a cue to silently acknowledge my disbelief and move forward, I anticipated concluding the evening with a mindless movie and a couple of shots before retiring to my lodgings. Midway through indulging in 2 shots of whiskey and half of an Eric Ander special, Jacob nonchalantly confessed to me, I had a premonition about his illness, you know, even before he disclosed it to us. For an instant, the world seemed to fade into obscurity. I turned to Jacob, utterly flabbergasted, and stuttered, "You what? Who?" His response was a vacant stare before he retrieved his phone, navigated to a text conversation with himself, and exhibited a message detailing the precise contents of our mutual friend's revelation. Not only that, but he had dispatched this message to himself a week prior. Baffled by the inexplicable nature of the situation, I pondered the implications. Before I could ascertain whether Jacob had been privy to the information before the rest of us, he proceeded to reveal another message from that same day, a message concerning me. It delineated my scheme to embark on a fortnight-long road trip following the news, my intention to visit Jacob during the final leg of my expedition, and the exact date and time of my arrival. Before he could delve deeper into the matter, I impulsively swatted his phone away and urged him to desist. If this excursion was an elaborate prank, then fine, but he should have the decency to exclude our friend from his bizarre jest. Shaking his head, Jacob insisted that there was no jest. An urge to depart surged within me, yet I found myself immobilized. What did he mean? Before Jacob could furnish an explanation, I heard my name being called from the slightly ajar door leading to the garage, an invocation that seemed to emanate from Jacob's mother. A wave of relief washed over me as I recollected the existence of the family's alternate entryway to the garage, repurposed as a supplementary living space. Regardless of the enigma surrounding Jacob's demeanor, it was evident that he was in distress, prompting me to feel obligated to implore his parents to seek assistance for him. Responding with a casual, "Yeah, just a moment," I swiftly rose from the sofa, hastening towards the garage while Jacob's intense gaze trailed after me. In a state of oblivion, I swung open the door, prepared to voice my concerns, only to be silenced by a hefty hand clamping over my mouth and another securing my midsection, accompanied by a resounding "shh." Within the nearly vacant garage, Jacob's parents and siblings stood transfixed by a sight I had hoped never to encounter again. A solitary table adorned with a sizable white enclosure housing a miniature house, with a plump brown rat positioned before it. I found myself restrained by Jacob's burly father, relegated to darting my eyes toward the young girl closest to the table, who fervently muttered under her breath, "Come on, do something, please." Yet Mr. Katz, the rat, paid no heed to the girl's entreaties. His coal-black eyes, slightly disproportionate to his skull, bore into me unwaveringly. Though reluctant, I couldn't resist casting another glance. An inexplicable curiosity propelled me to observe its actions. What followed left me perplexed. Previously motionless, the chubby rat now swayed rhythmically, its pendulum-like movements inducing a numbing sensation with each swing. As the world blurred around me, a distinct buzzing filled the air. However, this time, the buzz was accompanied by a voice, an immensely soothing one. It assured me that everything was fine, that Mr. Katz sought only my well-being, and that I should appreciate his presence. I was in a secure environment, surrounded by love. Despite any uncertainties, Mr. Katz appeared to be an exceptional rat, deserving of respect and admiration. Perhaps he warranted an even grander abode in his enclosure, and perhaps in return, he would impart something invaluable to me. Knowledge. What could be more precious? In an instant, that comforting embrace vanished, replaced by an overwhelming sense of dread. My mind was flooded with visions of unspeakable horrors, unveiling profound truths about both familiar faces and strangers. Dark revelations about the moral fabric of our world surged through me, exposing the sinister underbelly of our daily lives. I witnessed crimes yet to unfold, calamitous events poised to wreak havoc on countless lives, and the ceaseless tide of sorrow accompanying our mundane actions. And amidst it all, the inescapable awareness of the consequences of our choices. Desperately, I sought distraction, but every attempt was thwarted by intrusive thoughts, each more disturbing than the last. A rising panic threatened to engulf me, yet I found no respite in the numbing embrace of anxiety. Spiraling into the depths of despair, anxiety, and depression, I was buffeted by waves of anguish and suffering, each crashing against my psyche like a relentless storm. And then, abruptly, it ceased. The next moment, I found myself sprawled on the ground, gazing up at Mr. Katz. Wiping saliva from my mouth, I struggled to focus on the demonic rodent, now perched outside his cage on the small table. His abyssal eyes bore into mine as he gnawed on the twitching carcass of a large cockroach, his lemon-yellow teeth methodically tearing through the viscous remains while his tail twitched behind him. Anticipating another onslaught of mental torment, I was startled by a voice behind me. "Would you like to commune with Mr. Katz?" it inquired. To my astonishment, Jacob stood nearby, sporting a broad grin. "You're my dearest friend, Shikhar, the only one outside my family with whom I'd share this gift. Don't you wish to uncover which of our acquaintances will find love? Who will achieve success and who will falter, or when they will draw their last breath? Mr. Katz also imparts wisdom about yourself, guiding you towards self-improvement. You must. I erupted, demanding he cease his prattle, and instinctively he complied. Despite my outburst, all eyes remained fixed on the rat perched upon the table, save for Jacobs, who edged closer to me. He reiterated that the choice was mine, though he emphasized that no one had ever rejected Mr. Katz's revelations. In Jacob's view, knowledge of such magnitude was too invaluable to forego, leaving me to ponder what insights awaited. As I gradually rose to my feet, my resolve solidified. Taking a moment to process the recent events, I found an unwavering certainty within myself. Whatever that entity was, it certainly wasn't what they believed it to be. I harbored no doubt that its capabilities extended far beyond mere manipulation of thoughts. The last thing I desired was to provoke its ire. With caution, I approached Jacob and extended my right hand. He regarded it with a smile, preparing to reciprocate. In a swift motion, I delivered a clumsy left hook to his jaw. While no pugilist, the blow was sufficient to stun him momentarily, granting me the opportunity to push him aside and sprint back into the house, then out the front door. Glancing back, I saw Jacob's parents in pursuit. After a brief stumble, I reached my car and fumbled for the keys. Despite their assault on my windows, I managed to ignite the engine and speed away into the night, directionless. Only when I felt sufficiently distanced did I pull into a random parking lot, attempting to make sense of the day's events before returning to my hotel. I must confess, I indulged in an excessive amount of alcohol from a 24-hour gas station and feasted on pizza at a late-night establishment until I succumbed to sleep, uncertain of the hour. Originally intending to prolong my stay, recent events prompted a change of heart. Today, I utilize my final day here to recount these events while they remain vivid. It serves partly as a form of therapeutic release, partly as a means to confront the shock, and partly in anticipation of Jacob's inevitable outreach. Despite the ordeal, Jacob, I hold affection for you. Yet, until you seek assistance for whatever compels you to engage with that entity, our paths must diverge. What transpired in your home epitomizes the consequences of delving into forbidden realms. I lament my inability to offer aid, confronted as I am with unsettling truths about those I hold dear. Until resolution is found, though it may elude us indefinitely, farewell must be our refrain.